Fasten your seatbelts for an all areas access conversation spanning a decade inside Formula One with none other than former Haas F1 team principal Gunther Steiner. Unfiltered Live is an event no Formula One fan, hell, no racing fan should miss. The star of Netflix's smash hit docuseries Drive to Survive will take you on a wild ride through his career in motorsports and his decade of working on the Haas team. And it's for one night only. November 15th, Unfiltered Live at the Cadillac Palace Theater. Tickets at BroadwayInChicago.com. Today on CityCast Chicago, you need a last-minute costume or you just trying to freshen up your fall closet? Well, let's revisit our guide to thrifting and vintage shopping in Chicago. It's Wednesday, October 29th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. In the spring, we brought in Hey Chicago newsletter editor Emmi Mack to give us tips for navigating Chicago's secondhand shops, something she's been doing her whole life. Emmi, welcome back to the mic.
Thanks for having me on.
As our newsletter writer, you not only have put us up on some good deals that are happening around the city, but you've let us know that you used to work at a vintage shop yourself. So I wanted to start off by asking, do you think Chicago is a particularly good place to thrift or go vintage shopping?
Yeah, I mean, I texted some friends in preparation for this and kind of said, any favorite vintage spots that you guys have that I should shout out? And more than one person was kind of offended by my use of the word vintage because they're like, I thrift. Like, this is a thrifting town.
Okay, so what's the difference there? Set that up for me.
Basically, it's a village discount town. We use the terms, I think, in Chicago, thrifting and going to village discount interchangeably. We're just going to village. We don't even call it village discount. It's just like, I'm going to the village.
Or going to the swap.
Yeah, there's nothing like the thrill of finding a good vintage piece when you're at Village or another type of similar thrift store, Goodwill. That's where the good deals are. But also, Chicago does have a really vibrant actual vintage shop curated, consignment type scene too. And that's where I was working when I was in high school. I worked at Belmont Army, which I think was pretty much one of the oldest original vintage stores and it's still kind of around, but we can get into that.
Let's talk a little bit about working at Belmont Army Vintage. It was open for 50 years and last I checked, it was set to close.
So the original, or I say original, the one that was around when I was growing up was that 5-floor behemoth, cool metallic building on Belmont by the train. And that had a different type of shop on every floor. So it was in the basement, the skate shop, shoes, sneakers shop, then men's on the first, women's on the second, some more affordable designer, a little bit of nicer brands that were sold there. Then the classic Army surplus was on the third floor. And then the actual funky vintage shop, the one that, really smells like a vintage store, was on the fourth floor. And
they had a whole Macy's vibe going.
Yeah.
I never got to visit that.
Yeah, it was cool because I was on the women's floor. So it's like, oh, let's go down and see what the men's floor is doing. And, like the cute guys are in the skate shop, all that. You'd always find wacky characters in the Army surplus. Old vets would just come in and kind of post up and talk about their lives to whoever was walking by. Before I worked there, just growing up in Chicago, I grew up near Albany Park. So the first time I really ventured out into the city kind of on my own on the train that wasn't just going downtown was to go to Belmont and Clark. I remember we had a half day at school and this girl said, there's this really cool store we should go to. We were all 12 and we all followed her to Belmont Army, and walking into that huge metal building just kind of blew my mind when I was a kid. They had couches by the dressing room. So we were posted up for hours, just kind of like messing around, trying everything on. And then the whole area back then was just such a hot spot for vintage shopping and also unique fashion in general. In addition to the Belmont Army, You had Hollywood Mirror, which was this really quirky costume shop that it was huge, and giant disco ball in the middle. Ragstock was basically attached to the Hollywood Mirror. That's still there. So we would just, whenever we had free afternoons growing up, we would just mess around in Lakeview and literally get $4 wedge shoes and so many cool things. And yeah, so it was kind of this mix of fast fashion chains and secondhand stuff, but it was just such a special time because it was so brief that we could actually find stuff for dirt cheap. I don't really think it's quite like that anymore.
I feel so late to the game because when I was younger, I took for granted how many of my uncles, cousins, my pops would pass down like 90s starter jackets and throwback jerseys. And I'd wear it to school when I could. But then when I was coming up as like a young teenager, the goal was just to go like find some knockoff Jabot jeans or some Evisu jeans, trying to get the latest Jordan or Mike pack that you could find. And now I'm at the age where I'm like, I'm trying to find some Evisu jeans. But before we jump into some of the insider tips, I know we were talking about the terminology. Is thrifting and vintage shopping the same, or is there a difference we should pay attention to as we move through this conversation?
I think that thrifting implies it wasn't curated by someone who works somewhere. So, for example, when you go to Buffalo Exchange, they're saying no to so much. I've been rejected and walked out of there with my tail between my legs more times than I could count. Same with Crossroads. I don't know. Maybe it's a me problem, but I think other people have experienced this shame.
No, me and Taylor have gone into Buffalo Exchange with a bag and they be like $2.
The things they do pick are definitely not the best things. I mean, in Chicago, thrifting implies you're at Village. Like I said, you're knee deep in it when you're thrifting. But I think the list of stores that I kind of want to talk more about today are those ones that it's like a bit more selective.
Got it.
So you can go in there expecting to find something that is worth a little bit more. Although we're in Chicago, we haggle. We're going to find the deals anyway.
Okay. So are there any spots you would recommend for purely vintage shopping?
Right now in Wicker Park, you can find a colorful stretch of vintage stores, more similar to how I feel Lakeview used to be almost. You have on Milwaukee, Una Mae's 2nd Street, Coco Rococo, which is where I get all my sunglasses every summer, and the Oleo pop-up, which has been there on the weekends lately.
Oh, I also got this from Una Mae. It's a squirrel bowl.
I love their little tchotchkes and candles and all of their, some of that stuff is new, some of it's vintage, but it's just such a cute collection when you go in there. People should know to go in the basement at Una Mae's. That's a good thing to remind people that that's where the better, more unique finds are for sure. For costume jewelry, which I feel like you can't really talk about vintage without talking about costume jewelry and similar pillbox hats, mink stoles, things like that. Juju's Vintage on Harlem, which is technically in Niles, but it's pretty close to the city. And I've not been to another store like it, actually. It's such a concentrated amount of really cool costume jewelry. If you move, you feel like a bull in a china shop there because it's a small space and there's so much inside and it's sparkling. I love going there. Similar vibe to that also is Lost Eras in Rogers Park, which has more of that through the decades old Hollywood costume options. Beatniks is sort of like what Ragstock envisions itself to be, but Beatniks is the real deal almost. You can get your Pride Parade spandex there, but you can also find some way more rare pieces. Shangri-La in Roscoe Village. In Avondale, Gem is new, and Cone Ranger, which is owned by a friend of mine, and they upcycle pieces, so they're adding embroidery and other touches to vintage items. Mount Sinai in Lakeview is more of that thrift feeling. It's big, but you can get some cool old stuff there. And then in Pilsen, if you ever want to make a day of going vintage shopping, that's similar to Wicker, a place where you could stay on a single street and hit so many spots. There's Knee Deep, which is probably my favorite over there. And then, but there is 4 in a row on 18th Street between Ashland and Racine. So 18th Street Vintage, Pilsen Vintage, Very Best Vintage, and Knee Deep are all right there.
One of the best resale spots in Chicago is Root Consignment Company. A couple of their photos are people finding old furniture. I've seen somebody with an old Gucci clutch, some Gucci handbags as well. A few places that are smaller, but you may stumble in and find some great gems. I stopped by Clove Me Thriftique in Calumet Heights. It's down the street from my mom's. And they have some really good bags, some costume jewelry as well. And they're also With You in Mind resale shop in South Shore, Gilder Designer Thrift Boutique in High Park. These are all places that like people will take the time, walk you through the merchandise, tell you some stories about where they got it from. So I want to throw that on people's list as well.
I love when the store owner, you're picking something up and she knows exactly where it came from. It's no longer there, but Tilly's in Andersonville was legendary. Every girl I know got their prom dress from there, and each prom dress came with, it could have been BS, who knows, some story about how the person who had it worked at Vogue or married a politician or a prince. Like she made your dress feel like it belonged to a princess of the Midwest before you wore it to prom. So
that's so raw. November is Homelessness Awareness Month. Now, most of us know homelessness is a problem in Chicago. We see our neighbors sleeping in parks and bus stations, and we want to help. That's why in November, Deborah's Place is focused on raising awareness about what actually works. Permanent housing, not just overnight shelter, paired with supportive services. At Deborah's Place, that model, permanent supportive housing, has helped thousands of women find paths towards stability. When we can provide housing paired with necessary resources, our communities become safer and more livable for all Chicagoans. So learn more about events in the community and how you can support Deborah's Place at deborahsplace.org. If we said it once, we said it 1,000 times. It's spooky season, y'all, but what doesn't have to be so damn scary are your old drafty windows. Not if you replace them with Window Nation. Window Nation offers top quality replacement windows with a lifetime warranty. And if you act now, you can make no payments for 2 years. No, for real, no payments, no monthly payment, no down payment, and no interest until 2027. And if you're looking for high quality, affordable windows for your home, then Window Nation is the place to be. Get started on your free estimate before October 31st to save big on your replacement windows. Get in before Halloween. Head to windownation.com. I find it sometimes harder to shop because I got, big thighs, a little bit of butt on me, right? It's hard to find pants. Like the button-up shirts and t-shirts fit different. And so when I go thrift, sometimes I find it hard to go and spend an entire day on the hunt. So sometimes I need to know where's the best place for like a specific thing that I'm looking for. And so I want to run through some categories of things people might be looking for. And I want you to let me know if you have a recommendation for a shop that might be good for that. And so let's start off with old sports clothes.
So Urban Jungle in Wicker Park, it's a fairly newer store. The guys that own it are great. And it's full of old sports clothing. Similar, they take a lot of streetwear. Also, if you aren't looking for some really rare jersey or anything, you can pretty much walk into any Village Discount in the city of Chicago and find any Chicago sports team. I was paintballing with my friends last year, and so I just went into a Village. I was able to find 5 Urlacher jerseys, one for each of us on our team. So there's so many jerseys at Village Discount, you could even find multiples in one day if that's what you're looking for. I did it. Also, the Goodwill in West Loop is great for business wear, old slacks, things like that, because you don't want to spend all of your hard-earned money on your office clothes. You want to spend it on your fun clothes.
One of the places I have found some success, I found an old Mighty Ducks starter coat. Walked right in and it was in the back, in the corner, hanging up. Very first time I ever visited. And I also walked away with a Chicago Bulls, I think it was a 92, the first back to back. And I've only seen 3P and 6 rings. Crew Next, this was a original, like teal colored back to back. And that was over at Apricot Vintage in Irving Park. And so Apricot Village is another one of those spots where you're going to go have like a good time looking around, but you almost going to have as good a time just like talking to the people who work there.
I have to go there. I've not. That sounds awesome.
What if people are looking for something a little more formal, like they going to a wedding or they got an event they need to pop out to?
Gilda's in Hyde Park has kind of that similar old glam vibe with their pieces. And they recently reopened on 55th Street. They were in another location before that. So people should just know that that's still around. Similarly at Juju's, which I mentioned for costume jewelry, but they also have a lot of long formal vintage dresses. They have a whole rack of tutu skirts, which for me, I love to dress up. If you want to do a Carrie Bradshaw thing, you can find a lot of pieces there.
I found a good blazer.
Yeah.
Nice little smoker's jacket.
Oh, actually, I just got 2 great blazers for $10 about at Classy Closets in Evanston.
$10?
Yeah, they're sitting right next to me right now. They're great because they have a lot of just kind of sales on a rolling basis and a $5 rack outside. And lots of times the $5 racks outside of stores is their weaker things. Let's be real. Mm-hmm. But I've gotten some of my favorite things from there on the $5 rack at Classy Closet. So definitely if you're up north.
Now, what if you are specifically looking for costumes, whether for a party, maybe to just go out, or I'm looking for something for a production? Where could I hit up?
Lost Eras in Rogers Park, which I mentioned before, but it is a go-to for that. And they have so many costumes that there was even coverage, I think last year or something, where it was like, we don't just have costumes, guys. We also have all this other stuff. So
had to run the ad campaign that was like, just to be clear, we have range. I know what we are known for. And then I know you have some other places that even if you're not looking for a specific category, but you want to go in and want to feel like you're going to leave with something that you like. Yeah.
So Lost Girls, which is a business that's been expanding. They have a big shop in Logan Square. They have a lot of tchotchkes, newer and older pieces. So it's also great if you are looking for a gift for someone. Got my cousin an old style beanie there for Christmas, and it's been worn by her husband, and both of her teenage sons at this point. The old style beanie is a crowd pleaser, I learned, as a gift, and I think they have more of them. So, and then down the street from me is Flying High, which is kind of almost like a hippie shop, and they have a lot of cool old Coach bags in the back. And then across the street on Armitage is a brand new boutique, which opened this month called Sacrosanct. And it's next to the Sunday Standard, which doesn't look like a vintage store, but they have secret vintage pieces hanging among the new ones on the racks there. I got my mom a silk coat and realized after I bought it that it was, in fact, used, which was fine. It was just you would have not known because all their pieces look very new, and it's a very curated store.
We have gotten so many great spots on the list, and I know there are people listening who are still waiting to hear their favorite boutique that we haven't mentioned, or a new vintage spot, or a spot that should be on our radar. Remember, y'all, none of our lists are exhaustive. We need you to complete them. So if you want to add your favorite thrifting spot, now, if you want to gatekeep, obviously this ain't for you. But if you want to contribute your favorite spot, our lines are always open at 773-780-0246. Leave your name, your neighborhood, and maybe your second favorite spot if you do want to gatekeep your favorite. I will understand that. What are your insider tips as someone who has worked in a former 5-floor thrift store,
Yeah.
you can put us up on game.
I guess I'm speaking for myself when I say this, but as I get older, I'm trying not to be as much of a hoarder. I am, for sure. And it's kind of about just picking it up. And my rule is if I can think of 3 different ways that I'm going to style it with stuff I already have. If I can only think of one, I have to put it down. And maybe 2 if one of them's like really good. But I really try to think, what are 3 outfits off the top of my head? Do I have a pair of
Mm-hmm.
shoes? Are these pants going to be too long with even my 5-inch platforms? Like, you really have to get in the nitty gritty of your own mind and memorize your closet. I think Chicago doesn't get the credit it deserves as being a fashion town. I think that there isn't a signature look in Chicago, and that's what makes it fun to not only shop here, but also to go out here, to go to bars and look at what people are wearing. For me, that is, I don't know, that's what makes me truly happy. And then I love asking people, "Oh my God, where did you get that?" And when someone compliments me, you know, I'm the old lady at the who's working at the store who's like, "You'll never believe where I got this and who owned it before." So, especially being in a Midwest town, you know, we dress through the winter. We have to pick out outfits that work in multiple climates. But I think that's what makes it fun to dress here.
Mm-hmm.
I love the challenge. And in the same way, thrifting is a challenge.
When you are going thrifting, are you looking for the thing that like fits you, or are you willing to buy something too big and then go pay extra money after to get it tailored?
My friends who shop with me, if they hear this, will know I'm always saying, don't buy anything if you have to spend more money on it. That's me. But then again, the Met Gala Tailored for You theme was awesome. And I really enjoyed looking at all those pieces. But if it's something that's really special that you're spending over $100 on, and you know if you get it tailored, it's going to be perfect, then I think go for it. But if it's already a deal, if it's a $20 item, like don't bother. I feel like just because you don't know if that's the quality that's going to last. So it's a lot of effort, but that's just how I see it.
Do you have any tips for figuring out if a piece is quality?
I can't buy used polyester. It just seems like, what am I doing? Like, what are we doing here? I have so much polyester at home. I just have to draw a line with that. But in general, I don't overthink labels at all. I know some people thrift to find designer items. I personally just don't. I have friends who make a good side hustle looking for that stuff and selling it, you know?
No, I mean, you got your heart really in the game. You're not here to drive up the market.
No, I'm not trying to.
But what I'm really trying to say is, what is too raggedy for you? Like, what is too distressed? What is too many holes in the lining of the fabric? What's too far gone for you? Because I've been seeing some accounts that pop up and a person has like a sweater vest from 63, and dog, it ain't no sweater or no vest left on that mug hanger. So what's too far gone for you?
Sometimes it's insulting to see what's being sold at what price. It's not like I am looking for flawless pieces when I go shopping, especially secondhand, but because I'm really trying to not have my closet overflow too much, it's good to just have personal rules. Like, okay, if the zipper is wonky, I just have to say no. Like, I can't keep trying. I've been trying to zip it for 10 minutes, you know? So I think everyone should pick what really bothers them and then not go back on it, because otherwise you end up coming home. As my mom knows, so many times I would come home from Village Discount with a 15-pound bag of platform shoes, and they all have dry rot. And they're probably still all in my parents' basement because we never bothered to get rid of them. You wear them once and the sole falls off. At my senior prom, I wore sparkly silver heels from Village Discount, and the heel fell off at prom, which like made sense. My date forgot the corsage. So obviously that was going to happen. But
par for the course.
Another rule I have is this makes me so sad, but You have to, when you're at Village, if you're gonna buy platform shoes, this is okay. I'm glad I talked until I got here because this is my big rule. You have to pull the sole and see, because you can feel that wiggle, and half the stuff is dry rotted. As cute as it is.
Check the sole, check the heels, maybe give it a little tug, bend it a little bit, just give it a little bit of some elbow grease to see if it's gonna pop out. Not all the good thrifting is at stores. What are some good flea markets or events that make a good spot for thrifting?
So the Chicago Vintage Festival, which started a couple years ago, brings tons of vendors to different locations on the north and south side. There's a ton of vendors at these things, and it's a really fun day outing if you don't know what to do on a Saturday or Sunday, because if you go there and spend some time, you end up, I made a friend there when I went last summer when it was in Logan Square, just because we kept bumping into each other at different stands. So you'll just find like-minded people who are excited that there are so many vintage vendors. It feels almost like you're at Poshmark in real life or something. It has a bit more of that. I feel like a lot of the places have more of the Y2K fashion vibe too. So if that's what you're into. And if you want to keep up with what days those are coming down the pike, you can subscribe to the Hey Chicago newsletter, because I'll always make sure I'm plugging them in our events section.
Do you have any tips for folks trying to sell their stuff to thrift stores?
So checked with an expert this morning, someone who used to manage a Buffalo exchange, and she said it's pretty much all about the season. They buy by season. I think that means the present season, since they're trying to cycle this stuff right out the door as fast as they can. I also know, if you are like me and have left Buffalo Exchange with your tail between your legs, just know that a quarter roughly of their stuff is wholesale stock. It's new. So even though it looks like a full store and you might be thinking, why can't they take my piece? They're pretty selective for just those reasons. So I don't think it's worth bringing H&M, Zara, Target. They tell you not to bring fast fashion. But if you're shopping there, you will see many times, oh my God, they're selling this. This label says H&M. It's happened many times. So I think things fall through, but I don't think it's worth continuing to send the fast fashion out into the world back and back again.
How well do our family heirlooms play at the thrift stores?
If they've been around this long, then I think it's worth it to go see what you can get, because let's wear old stuff, stuff that lasted this long, and keep passing it around. That's what makes it so fun. And that's why people in Chicago dress so good, because we all have cool parents who hopefully held on to some things. My favorite jacket was my aunt's ex-boyfriend's in the 70s. Then it was my mom, and now it's mine, and I wear it every weekend. And you can't find a fringe jacket like that anymore. So it's up to us to keep them in the pool, you know?
I want to give a huge thank you to our Rockstar newsletter editor, Emmi Mack. Emmi, it was such a privilege to have you on the podcast for the first, but definitely not the last time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so fun to talk to you.
Before we get out of here, make sure you're following along with Emmi and Hey Chicago. If you're not, head over to chicago.citycast.fm and subscribe now. Of course, we can't get out of here without some good news. One of the many ways Chicago has been protesting the federal government and trying to warn neighborhoods when ICE is lurking and terrorizing is through passing out these whistle kits to individuals, organizations, local businesses. They contain resource cards and know your rights pamphlets in multiple languages, and of course a whistle. And today is Whistle Mania 2. Yes, you heard me correctly. Organized by Belmont Army United, businesses across the city are hosting volunteer opportunities to help pack these kits. I'll drop a link for you in the show notes. And don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Chicago neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.